don't deal with people who are half. And Joe says half is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. They suck the life out of you. And they're very inefficient, and they make your life miserable. So I'm going to want to try to find out what kind of person you are, how good of a match we are, how our core values line up, because I want a long collaboration that's prosperous for both of us. Now, you might not want that, and you're entitled to not wanting that. But then I'm entitled to move on because I want to find somebody that wants that.
Well, and you also definitely want to figure that out. Because if that's your goal, because that is the establishment of a productive, generous, collaborative, goal-oriented relationship that's mutually desirable. And you want to let the other person reveal themselves because you don't want to delude yourself, even as a consequence of your own verbal ability. You don't want to delude yourself into thinking you've established the kind of relationship you wanted and find out that you were wrong. That's another reason to listen. It's like, you want to be sure you got the picture. So you know what sort of thing you're stepping into.
Right. And I know it's going to sound very harsh, but when I was teaching at USC, I had a female come up to me in a class, and she's like, there are a lot of employers out there that want to pay me less because I'm a female. If I got an employer that's paying me less because I'm a female, how do I negotiate a better deal? And I said, all right, so I'm going to answer you as if I was your dad, and you just ask me, hey, the guy I'm in a relationship with treats me badly. How do I get him to treat me better? My answer to you is go someplace else. There are plenty of places you want to be somewhere where they value you. And if their core value is to pay you less based on your agenda, they're going bankrupt anyway. That's a bad strategy. And you don't want to go down the tubes with them. So you want to be someplace where somebody values your work. Don't try to fix a bad employer any more than you try to fix a bad significant other. There's somebody out there better for you, and you're far happier and far more productive and have a far better life by moving on. So if the person, whether you're in sales or whether it's your employer, if their core values don't line up with yours, they're entitled to their core values. Move on and line up with a team that's going to move you farther ahead in your life than anybody else that doesn't line up with you ever would.
You said that you shouldn't try to fix a bad employer. And the managerial literature indicates very clearly, too, that you shouldn't try to fix a bad employee. So
two-way relationship.
I'd like your thoughts on this, but well, absolutely. Well, so first of all, it's not easy to fix someone, and it takes a long time. It's a dubious enterprise, and they need to be bloody well fully on board with that and willing to make the appropriate changes. And the probability that you're going to have an errant employee with a history of bad behavior, and that you as a manager, say with 20 people to attend to, are going to make substantive changes in that person's basic psychological makeup, well, the evidence suggests very strongly that you're just not going to. And all the literature I read that was at the crossover between the clinical and the managerial suggested that you spend all your time as a productive manager with your best people. And what that also implies is those are the people that you hire. And with regards to firing people, which is also a kind of negotiation, I had this friend who's one rough guy, and companies used to hire him to fire people. And I didn't like firing people, and I still don't. And I asked him how he tolerated the emotional stress that came along with that. And he said that he liked doing it. And I said, what do you mean you like doing it? Because I was just like outside of my wheelhouse. But I knew this guy and I respected him. And he said, look, I go into companies and I find the people who kiss up and punch down. I find the people who take all the credit. I find the people who don't distribute any of the benefits. I find the manipulators. I find the people who are lying about their motivation, or even who are just in the wrong place doing something they shouldn't be doing. And I let them know that I see what they're doing, and I'm pretty damn happy when they leave. And I thought, hey, man, fair enough, And the negotiation there, like if you do have an employee that isn't performing well, part of the negotiation there is to say something like, look, it should be evident to both of us that there's something that isn't right about what's happening here. And we could drag this out painfully, kicking and screaming, bitter and resentful for the next 15 years. Or we could just like cut our losses and maybe you could go find something that would suit you. And you know, I've seen this in my clinical practice because I had lots of people who came to me in the aftermath of being fired. And of course, that was often, almost always, to some degree devastating. But it wasn't that uncommon for people 6 months later, especially if they actually did try to put themselves back together, to be immensely relieved that they no longer had that particular noose around their neck.
Yeah, there's so many reasons why the severing of a bad relationship is better for both parties. And who has to do the severing is often the hard part. I was involved in trying to let somebody in a charitable organization go a number of years ago, affiliated with a church, and I'm going to the minister of the church for guidance. And I'm expecting him to say to me, because this was a great man. Man's name was Arthur Caliandro, minister of Marble Collegiate Church, New York City. Phenomenal human being, one of the best guys I've ever known. And I thought Arthur was going to counsel me on, guidance and, all the stuff I expected. And he looked at me and he said, there's no gentle way to cut somebody's head off. And I thought, wow. And for Arthur to tell me that was the reality of business relationships, personal relationships. Like if it's bad for you, it's bad for them too, and they're going to be better off. If they're half for you, if they're hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating, you are for them too. So you're not doing anybody a favor by hanging on to a bad relationship. It's hard to sever it, and in many cases, the jolt that comes from it leaves both sides much better off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I know a phrase like that too. I don't know if this was something specific to Northern Alberta, but if you have to cut the tail off a cat, you don't do it an inch at a time.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, that's rough, but it makes sense. All right.